Hey there! I'm Samantha Bryant. I write the Menopausal Superhero series, and I'm here today to share with you from Friend or Foe. So, Friend or Foe is a novella that fits right in between book one and book two. If you read book one, Going Through the Change, then you know it ends at a very dramatic moment, and somebody's on a bus pulling away, and somebody's left on the sidewalk, unable to continue the fight for now. And when we pick up in book two, some time has passed. There's been some months in between. And so if you are wondering what happened between book one and book two, you can find your answers here in Friend or Foe. Now, one of the fun things about writing Friend or Foe was creating a point of view voice for Cindy Lou. Cindy Lou is the antagonist in the first book, the mad scientist who accidentally gave everyone superpowers, and she'd been experimenting on herself, you may also remember as well. Having trying to fight the effects of aging, she succeeded all too well. And although she is 67 years old, to look at her, you'd think she was 13. So as we begin, Friend or Foe, Cindy Lou is on the bus, having just gotten on it at the end of the first book, Going Through the Change. So here we go. Chapter 1, Cindy Lou, Escape Artist. You're going to have to sit down, miss. Cindy Lou whirled around, a retort ready to fly. Who was this man to tell her to sit down? And found the driver, turned around in his seat and scowling at her. Thinking fast, she rearranged her face into her best impression of a frightened young girl. It wouldn't do to get kicked off the bus before she'd made her escape. She thought she could still see Patricia on the sidewalk, despite the emergency vehicles crowding the street. There wasn't nearly enough distance between her and trouble yet. Sorry, sir, she said, pitching her voice high and flashing a nervous smile at the man. She plopped into the seat, imitating adolescent acquiescence, and primly folded her hands in her lap. The driver nodded and turned back around in his seat when the light turned green. The last beams of sunset still pierced the horizon as the bus took the entrance ramp to the highway. Cindy was on her way. Not the most auspicious start she'd ever had, but she had reclaimed the emeralds and escaped from Patricia O'Neill and friends. The authorities would have descended on the college campus by now, and if luck was on her side, they would spend hours or even days explaining themselves. After all, the truth was hardly credible. Women who could fly, wield fire, and transform themselves into giant bipedal lizards? A story like that would land them in a hospital talking to the rubber walls. Cindy would be long gone by then, on her way to straightening out the mess her life had become. It had all gone so wrong so fast. It didn't even seem possible. There would be time to worry about how it had gone wrong later. Time to move forward and figure out where she could go from here. She didn't have much with her, just the clothes on her back and the meager contents of her wallet. Money would be her first priority. Maybe Helen could help. No, Helen hadn't made it out. She'd left Helen back there, with them, imprisoned, maybe even dead. Cindy really was on her own, all her best allies left behind. She'd think of something. If nothing else, she could always play the lost lonely waif again. The grandmotherly African American woman in front of her turned around. Would you like some gum, sweetheart? She held out a pack of doublemint, one shiny silver rectangle extended for her to grasp. Cindy had an impulse to tell the woman she couldn't take candy from strangers, but she didn't really want to do anything that helped people remember her. To escape, she needed to be invisible, so anyone who asked after her wouldn't be able to follow far. So she thanked the woman and popped the gum into her mouth, surprised by the rich, sweet flavor. Her stomach growled. The woman laughed. Goodness, did you miss your supper tonight? Trying for a non-threatening charm, Cindy smiled. She'd been good at that once, and she could learn to use what advantages she had again. I'm afraid so. It's been quite a day. I'd say your clothes are a mess, dear. Cindy looked down. Her baggy pants were grass-stained from her struggle on the lawn. Her shirt bloused around her skinny frame but didn't hide its torn edges. One of her sneakers flapped, gap-mouthed, the sole disconnected from the rest of the shoe. She ran her hands over her head self-consciously and found her hair sticking up at odd angles, too. The woman must imagine her a runaway. Why else would a kid her apparent age be out alone? We had a field trip today, and I stayed late at my friend's house by campus. My mom is going to be angry about these pants. The woman relaxed a little at the mention of Cindy's mother, and it wasn't a lie. Her mother would have been upset about the state of her clothes, if she were still alive to notice such things. Nothing a little spray and wash won't take out, I suppose. That bruise, though. The woman pointed at Cindy's cheek. Cindy touched the spot tenderly and found it swollen and sore. She'd almost forgotten that Patricia had punched her. Now she'd have to convince this stranger she wasn't a victim of abuse. The last thing she needed would be to get off the bus and find child services waiting to take her into protective custody. She laughed again, trying to pitch the sound high and affect a carefree, shrugging attitude. I know! It's a beaut, isn't it? I took a spill off Patty's trampoline and caught the frame with my face on the way down. I'm just glad I didn't knock out another tooth. Mom would be really pissed then. The woman looked at her sharply. Shit. Maybe pissed isn't right. Do kids say pissed? Cindy held her gaze, remembering to blink steadily. Not blinking revealed a lie as easily as blinking too much. She had to strike the right balance. The woman knew the power of silence, though. It stretched long between them, while her dark eyes locked on those bruises. Cindy's mind raced to add to her story, to make the lady accept it and move on. Could she say something to make her think this was cultural? A Chinese thing? Probably not. She tried not to fidget or look askance. Luckily for her, a ping sounded, followed by a recorded voice announcing the stop for Morris Square. The lady gathered her belongings and pulled the cord to show she wanted off. Cindy sagged with relief. As she stood to leave, the woman handed her a candy bar and a business card. I hope everything really is all right, sweetheart, but if it isn't, you call me. We can help. Cindy didn't say anything as the woman walked away. She kept her eyes on the floor, automatically counting the tread lines and noticing the break in the pattern where a patch had been applied. Only after the bus started moving again did she read the purple and gold card. The woman was a social worker. That had been close. Sliding into the darker corner near the window, Cindy sprawled her gangly legs across the rest of the seat to discourage anyone who might try to sit near her. She wished that she had some headphones or a phone to play with, something to send out the signal that she didn't want to interact with anyone. The gemstones in her pocket bit into her hip bones. She found it comforting, knowing they hadn't been lost. Her head fell against the seat, and Cindy closed her eyes. She didn't have to pretend to be tired. She wasn't used to this kind of running around. What she wouldn't give for a quiet day behind her microscope again, uncovering secrets instead of living them. The journey would be long, and she didn't even know where she'd go yet. Thank you. So the rest of the book bounces back and forth between Cindy and Patricia's point of view. Cindy and Patricia's contentious friendship and history together is a really important part of the menopausal superhero series, and this book focuses mostly on the two of them. Of course, Lionel, also known as Fuerte or Linda Alvarez, is there as well, and all the characters are dealing with the fallout of what happened in book one. So I hope you'll check out Friend or Foe. Again, it fits into the series neatly between book one and book two, covering that time gap in between and giving Cindy her first point of view. Thank you.